Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. I hope you're all well, wherever you are around the world. It's been a while, so this time it's a 1975 Corgi Triumph TR7. So just before I delve into this video restoring this old classic British car, these are some of the latest products I'm doing, some little display series, little diorama scenes, internal garages, this one being a rundown effect one. So I'm doing the usual laser cut parts, but I'm also doing realistic printed skins really that stick straight onto the products. All done in Photoshop by myself using photorealistic bricks and stuff like that. So go check them out. I'll put a link in the description. So let's get cracking on then with this classic British bit of beef. I've got to be honest, I've never been a massive fan of these. I like the old Triumph cars, TR5s, TR6s, etc. The TR7, I don't know if it's because an old boss I used to work for had one and he was a bit of a, well, yeah, as most bosses can be. But I never really liked the sharp lines of these cars. I've always been quite a square blocky guy, and it sort of married the squareness with sharpness. I just, something about it, I just thought it looked dated even when it was new. So there was quite a few knocking around in the 80s growing up, I guess, around my way. But again, it's a rally car, and I love rally cars. This particular one, it's a Corgi Juniors one, got this plastic chassis which has seen better days. It's battered and bruised. The wheels, typical of old anything really, Corgi's Matchbox, no matter what they are, they're quite terrible looking wheels. The interior is pretty good, however, some nice little detail in there apart from the blocky steering wheel sort of bit at the front. But other than that, casting's in good shape, albeit it's lost the stickers now, the British Airways stickers that it came in for that particular liveried race car. Overall, no, not battered and bruised. Windscreen assembly's pretty good. Nice shade of blue, not too bad. A few scratches, I can sort that out. But yeah, this casting, hopefully I can make into a bit more aesthetically pleasing example. So I'll strip the paint off it. I've already done videos on this, so there'll be a nice little description in the link below to click on and get onto that video, and you can watch how I strip the paint and all the rest of it. So I won't bog it down with that, but I'll get straight on while the paint is stripping off, or what little paint there is, onto this plastic chassis and just clean it up a little bit. It's obviously had a big batter and a bruise because as a kid I kept all these cars in a massive box that my mum made me. So the quite a few of them now have been well worn in terms of storage, being smashed around in a box rather than played with, unfortunately. But just to get these nasty little bits out, I'm going to sand it, I'm going to cut it, and I'm just going to probably add a little bit of filler as well, because you can get replica parts here and there, but what's the point in doing a resto mod if you're just going to get all these replica parts? So I'm just going to show you how I would sort out the plastic. And there is a lot of different types of plastics. You've got to be careful. The little files that I'm using are quite, well, I don't even know what grit they are. So other than saying fine and super fine, I'm just literally going off what I think they are. And they're probably like 2000 grit. But to get some of these bigger bits off and get rid of the exhaust and whatever on the back, I'm just sort of shaping it away, or if you want, just shaving a little bit off it with the old modelling knife before I then, some of the worst areas, fill it again with some Humbrol model filler. I use different types of filler. I use the Squadron one and I use the Humbrol one, and to be perfectly honest, it's whatever I put my hand on first. There's no rhyme or reason to which one I particularly want to grab hold of, but all I'm doing on this rear is filling in the recess where they always used to put these tow bars on Matchbox and Corgi cars. And yeah, there's a lot of little accessories back in the day to have, little trailers and boats, horse boxes, all sorts of stuff they used to pull. So I'm just filling in that recess on the back and some of this damaged front end. And it hasn't got to look particularly pretty at this stage. I always put a little bit more than I should on, purely that I can sand and file back. That gives me a little bit of room to play with. So, as I say, hasn't got to be that aesthetically pleasing, because as I'm going to show you now, I'm just going to sand away, if I can keep hold of it, the stick that is, and just get it into a bit more of a nicer original condition. I've just cut away the front ever so slightly to show where the indicator lights would have been. There is some slight recesses on the original one, but I've just made them a little bit bigger and a little bit deeper whilst I had it in that fillered state. So here's the stripped car now. It's pretty nice. There's no chips or bad form on there whatsoever. Nice and smooth. Always look good, these die-cast cars do, when you strip them right the way back. I think a lot of them look better just as they are. And I've finished off just doing a little bit of sanding now on that chassis plate. So I want to remove this tow bar. Well, this bit isn't the tow bar, it's the big bit that stops whatever you're hitching on the back from flicking off. So it's like an oversized light, rear number plate light holder thing. It's always an eyesore, always an eyesore. And rather than get my little Dremel on there and cut it out, I'm just going to file it down, because it is a bit tight in there. I don't want to file it all the way down flush, because I'm going to cover it with a number plate anyway, but just enough just to get rid of the stupid monstrosity that hangs out of the back of it. But moving on to the front end now, I'm going to do pop-up headlights. The cars had great little pop-up headlights. Lots of cars did, I suppose, in the 70s and 80s. You don't really see them much anymore. You know, you might get them on the odd supercar here and there, but I think every manufacturer had a go at making some in one way or another back then. But all I'm doing is putting a little bit of masking tape down and sketching out on the recesses the sort of the size that I need. And I'm going to do 2 for each side. I'm just going to stick this bit of masking tape over some styrene now and cut them out using it as a template. But what I want to do is glue, well, I will glue them in the end, but I'll just use a bit of blue tack whilst I'm making these. But I'll just cut one shape out to put on the actual car itself, and then do the same piece again, mirror it. Well, no, I won't mirror it for the other side, but have the other piece in the upright motion, and then glue a little bit of round bar for the headlight in between the two. So here's that first little bit that I've just done. That's what it's going to look like roughly in the upright position, but I will blue tack that piece down. As you can see, I've already cut the other piece ready, and I'm just going to slowly cut a slight little bit of this 2mm, oh no, it's 2.5mm bar section, and I will glue them in place in between the two like that, and have them something looking like that. There will be a little bit more straighter when I come to finish it once I've bonded them all together, but just as I'm going along, just put a little smidgen of blue tacky, well, white tack if you're gonna split hairs, but just a little bit of that just to hold it all in place while I'm doing it. But here we go for the front end. I've took the liberty of adding more spotlights. What rally car isn't a rally car without some big spotlights on the front? I think they actually had a few more on the TR7. They had some more square ones as well, a bit lower down, I think. But on this one, I'm just doing the extra 4 in that sort of typical triangle configuration that the cars had. Wheels, here's the old rubbish ones that were with it, and I'm going to use the PNW Diecast mini light replicas again for this one. I used them already before on an Escort project, and some rubber tyres, nice little grips from 3 inches. Again, all the descriptions are put in the link below. For the wing mirrors, I'm going to use another trick I've done in the past and I've showed you all, which is simply sanding down some of these dress pins with a little plastic head on them. You could, in theory, use a scalpel knife again, a modelling knife, and cut them down, but from my experiences, doing that just unsettles them a little bit. Just taking a little bit of extra time, you can just sand away and just slowly eat away at it without disturbing how it's already secured in place on that little pin itself. So that's what we're aiming to get, something like this. And once I drill the hole in the side of the door, we call them in England, we always call them wing mirrors, obviously, because they used to be on the wings, but nowadays they're always on the doors and, you know, by the A-pillar towards the glass. So still call them wing mirrors though. But I'm gonna use my little pin vise pin drill even, and just slowly make a hole big enough to pass the pin through, where I'll glue it in place, cut it to length, glue it in place. But it doesn't take long at all, this, and again, a worthwhile investment, these little tools, and they'll go a long way. I don't think I've ever swapped a drill bit or replaced one yet, actually. They've been pretty good. So, but that's roughly what I'm looking to achieve. You can use some EPO putty or some other form of hardened putty to put on the end of a pin and do all this, it's, you know, from scratch. But these little dress pins, I think they're only like a couple of quid from, well, from, I don't know, from anywhere really, supermarkets I guess, craft stores, places like that. But they're good. A little tin will last you forever and a day making them. So working on this interior now, I want to get rid of this blocky steering wheel and replace it with a nice 3D printed one with a little bit more detail. So I'm simply going to go through it and cut some of these holes and make way for this. And again, I'll work my way around and open up the passenger side as well, just so it mirrors it a little bit and it's got a little bit more depth to the finished model once I've done. But I will clean it up as I go along, because as is often the case, once you come to primer them afterwards, you see all the imperfections that you've done along the way. And all I'm doing here is just adding some little holes at the back so I can feed some seatbelt harnesses through at a later stage in a short while. But here is this little 3D printed steering wheel. I think it was Hot Wheels Works. Yeah, Hot Wheels Works, which I'll put in the description again. And I'm just going to fabricate a little, and thankfully it's quite a blocky looking interior in these TR7s. So a little piece of styrene and some more cut up very fine 1/2 mil and 1 mil bar, just to simulate the dials and some of the switches on the dashboard. But you can just sort of gauge how fine it is here. And it all looks better once it's painted. Obviously now it looks a little bit well, yeah, like I've just hashed it together a little bit, but once it's all primered up and painted afterwards, it looks pretty good. Again, I've just added a little bit more there on the passenger side for some sort of data equipment that the co-drivers used to look at. And then here I'm just adding another pin to simulate the gear stick in the car. It's already got a little handbrake there, but just going to make a hole so I can push this little pin through, which obviously being metal, you can get a nice looking replica look to it once it's finished. But simply pushing it in like that. I will glue it as well when I come to do the final assembly. It looks pretty sweet looking like that. Looks alright so far. So I'm just gonna now get rid of these little points here, which I don't quite know what. I don't know if it just locates the window assembly a little bit better, but I can't really see the benefit of why they were added anyway, these. But I'm just chopping them away because what I want to do is add a very simple roll bar in this one, just enough so you can see it from the rear of the car and from the side, but I'm not going to go too over the top and do a full cage on this one. Just enough just to add a little bit more realism to it, and simply just doing a hole either side. And it's been actually quite an easy one to do, this one, because it's got so much room underneath. I haven't got to worry too much about measurements. As long as I get the width right, I can simply feed it in like I'm showing you now and just trim off any excess underneath once I've glued it into position. So once you've married it up to the inside of the car with the windscreen assembly on and the bodywork on, you've got the rough height of it. So it's quite a quick, straightforward one to do this. But here I've just had a little cross beam section in, and just make sure it fits nicely, which it does look okay. And yep, I'm pretty happy with that one. So I'll just quickly show you the sum of all the parts that I've done on this. There's the PNW Diecast wheels, 3-inch racing tyres, bits on the interior, and here it is all primered up. Looks a lot better, a lot detailed than that original yellow one. Original one from factory, and again with some wing mirrors on the car, door mirrors, whatever you want to call them, and some poppy up lights. It's starting to look a lot better than the original Corgi car ever did. It looks pretty good. Looks okay. I'm happy with that. So I'll just add some of the final little touches on this now, and I'm just doing some seatbelt harnesses made out of masking tape again and painted with a flat matte acrylic paint. And obviously, being a masking tape, you can stick them down. They're self-adhesive, so very quick and simple trick to do. All you need to do is just paint some buckles on, or you could even make some little buckles out of styrene again and paint them up as well. Maybe want to paint some little yellow sort of harness strap pad things on as well, some Sparko ones, Willans, something like that. But you sort of get the idea. And they always sort of rook them up a little bit so it looks like the drivers and co-drivers just got out of them. So it adds a little bit of 3D depth to it than just lying them flat. And then finally, just doing this exhaust trim with some electrical ferrules and some solder wire glued together. Always looks pretty good once it's done. You can bend it to shape. And it's simply just dabbing the end of the solder wire with glue and just putting the end of the pipe on. You could even put it through an extra little bit of styrene as well to give a bit of a better back box, but I'm not normally that fussed on it, to be honest. You can't really see it unless you turn it over, just as long as it's got that realistic depth to the exhaust tailpipe. I'm quite happy with it. So there we go. That's pretty much what we're going to do to this one. So let's just have a quick reminder of this one, how it originally looked. Quite a battered and bruised, well worn, well played, well stored Corgi. And here we have now my version of the British Leyland British Airways. British Leyland version. The red one was quite the popular car that they drove in. This one was Tony Pond, and I've just added a few other little extra details off camera as well. The number plates, I've got some electrical tape for the mud flaps on the rear. Again, I've designed the decals myself. And a bit like before, I've actually done another version as well, because what I've wanted to start doing for a long time, and I'm going to start doing from now on, is sort of a fantasy version, almost a livery of what I thought the car should have been in, or more fitting to the time rather than modern day. I don't quite know, but it's what my take on a car would be that never was, if that makes any sense to you whatsoever. So I've just done it in Castrol Racing version because I've done quite a few Castrol liveried ones now. It's one of my favourite liveries. And just added some bigger gold wheels from Turbo Sheep 164 Customs, which I'll put in the description, his wheels as well. But there we have my take on the resto mod of a Corgi Triumph TR7. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time.